Well, guys, after much speculation, the rumors were true, and the results could not have been any better than they were. Hey guys, Cameron, happy 4th of July to all of you. Hope you all are having a great 4th of July. But of course, on this 4th of July, another episode of Girl Meets World was leaked online. I know, this keeps happening, and I know a lot of people are very worried that this is hurting the show. I don't think it is. I actually don't think this is hurting the show. In fact, I think they pay very well. I think they pay a great deal amount of attention to fan reception. One of the reasons that I think the show is, continuing is because of fan reception. Fans love this show, and Michael Jacobs loves this show. As long as Michael Jacobs loves this show, Disney Channel is not just going to cut Michael Jacobs. I mean, he's one of the most well-known, I think, producers when it comes to ABC and things like that. So they're not just going to cut him for Disney. I don't think they're going to do that. And I think, worry of Girl Meets World being canceled, the show will end when Michael Jacobs feels it needs to end. I feel like Michael Jacobs controls all of that, and I think we don't need to be worried about it. But anyway, what a hell of an episode to get through. I mean, this episode was just incredible. Look, I loved Girl Meets Triangle. I think it was a fantastic setup for where we were headed into this episode. But this episode, this was amazing. This was an amazing episode. By far the best episode of the season, and probably for me, the most Boy Meets World-like episode we've had of this show. Not that we haven't before, but I think this was probably the most like Boy Meets World. Even though Girl Meets Hurricane was very much like that, that still kind of felt like a Boy Meets World, reunion episode. This felt like a Boy Meets World episode, and I love that. I love when Girl Meets World does that, because they do a great job with not copying Boy Meets World, but having similar themes as Boy Meets World. And this episode actually concludes an arc that was started in Boy Meets World long ago and finally seems to end in this episode, and we'll get into that. But basically, let's just get into this episode because there's a lot to talk about. Starting off with the beginning, as we know, Maya is pretty much lost right now, and Riley and her at the end of Girl Meets Triangle made the decision to leave. And this was not Maya's decision. Riley made this decision, and I love the way the episode's out, with Maya being the one, who's kind of hesitant about leaving, and Riley just being, spontaneous and saying, look, let's go. We gotta get out of here, we gotta go find you, and, she doesn't even know where they're headed exactly. All she knows is that she's brought her clothes with her, they're going onto the subway, she has no idea where they're going, and, I really like the way that was done. But then that transitions into this scene where they're on the subway, and of course, we remember how the first episode, when they were on the subway, they met Lucas, and how Maya really was the one that told Riley to be a little bit more, be a little bit more kind of, not sexual is the word. I'm not going to say sexual, but sensual, I think, is definitely the word. Just be a little, put yourself out there more. And if you remember, I was reminded of this, Maya liked Lucas first. She was the one that liked Lucas in the beginning of the show, and she kind of stepped back for Riley, and that's kind of how this whole thing started. I feel like that was the moment where Maya started to kind of, give Riley what she wanted, and that's kind of what Riley doesn't want her to do. Riley talks about how she liked Lucas, and then they turn around and there's a guy right on the subway that's just like Lucas. Thought that was really funny. I definitely really enjoyed that. Really great way to start the episode, and I just really love the way that was done. But the other thing I loved about this episode is that it really focused on all aspects of the show. It didn't not focus on any character, except for Smackle, who again wasn't here. But again, I felt like it makes sense because it was supposed to be Lucas and the guys, and Smackle just doesn't really fit into that narrative. She just doesn't. I mean, Smackle's never been a part of this story, so it makes sense why Smackle's not at all involved here. Farkle doesn't really need to give a reason because Smackle's not involved in this kind of story. But basically, constantly throughout the episode, obviously, after that huge cliffhanger in the last episode where Lucas said, I made my decision, Topanga and Katie and Corey are waiting for, especially Topanga and Katie, they're waiting for him to give that decision, and Lucas is very concerned about the girls. He's wondering where they went off to. Corey calls someone, says, alright, they're on their way, we don't know where, but Corey says, alright, we know where they are, please, you can now give your decision. He's about to give his decision. We don't know who he chose, we don't know, and I kind of like that. I like that we don't know, because it again keeps this storyline going, and especially the way they end things off here, I think it makes sense why they've prolonged this story. I definitely think it has made sense, and I've talked about this before. The story has never been a love triangle. It's been more, why does Maya suddenly like Lucas? Why is this suddenly happening to her? And we'll get into that. But then we get to the stuff I know you guys really want to talk about. We see Riley and Maya are They now reached their destination, and it is none other than Sean's house. They're going to visit Sean, which you can just see Maya immediately light up that they're going to see Sean, and I love the way this was done, because we basically get into every aspect of Sean and every aspect of Maya, and I think this is the episode where we really start to compare these two more than ever. I mean, we've kind of compared, I think, Maya and Sean before, but never quite like we did in this episode, and that's something that I definitely really enjoyed, because basically, immediately, Sean thinks that this was all Maya's idea. That, Maya was the one that was the reckless one. Maya was the rebellious one. He feels this was Maya's doing in, coming to see him. But then he realizes it was Riley, and immediately he realizes that something's off. This is not the same Maya that, he's, grown to love like a daughter. This is not the same Maya for him. Definitely. This is a much different girl, and he doesn't know where she is. And he talks about, how they need to find where she started to act this way and where she started to not act like herself. And basically, we see all the clothes that Sean bought for her, and I don't think the show is trying to say that Sean buying these clothes for Maya was a mistake. I don't think that's what that was. His intention was to, as you know, give Maya new clothes, because the clothes that she had, he just didn't feel, were clothes that she necessarily wanted, and he felt that she needed better clothes and things like that, so he gave her these clothes. I don't think that's what the show was trying to say. I don't think the show was trying to say that this is, this was the moment where Maya started turning to Riley. But if you remember, in that scene in Girl Meets Hurricane, there was a scene, which I actually rewatched this episode, which I highly recommend you guys do. Before you watch this episode, go rewatch Girl Meets Hurricane, because there's a lot of things referenced from that episode in this episode, and I really enjoyed that. But basically, Girl Meets Hurricane, there's a scene, of course, where Maya's walking across, all these clothes, and Riley's kind of approving them. Riley's kind of, not exactly approving them, but just the way that Riley's saying things about them, complimenting them. Maya feels like she's, in the same place as Riley. She feels that she's accepted by Riley, and she feels she needs said acceptance, and I think we kind of get that message in this episode, that after this, Maya feels like, she got that acceptance. She wanted to keep that acceptance from Riley, and that is why I think she started to dress exactly like Riley, as shown in this episode. But there's a lot more going on with that than we think, and especially once we get to Sean, who I really love what they did with him here. So, probably my favorite part of this episode is not just that it's all about can we get Maya back, it's also about can we get Sean back, because we start to see that Sean, he starts to kind of tell his entire story about how Corey wanted to be exactly like him. If you remember, there was, in Season 1, Sean started that whole homework rebellion, which very much like Maya did in Season 1. But, when Sean started it, Corey wanted to act out like him, and Sean told him, look, you're Corey, I'm Sean. I love that we got that flashback. I thought that was great, and even though it was a Season 1 flashback, and I'm not that fond of Season 1, I still really loved it, because really, yeah, Corey and Sean's relationship is very reminiscent of Riley and Maya's. The difference is that I think, Corey wanted to be as rebellious as Sean, while Maya wants to be as, I think, as prissy and perfect. That's not really the word. Riley I wouldn't consider perfect, but I think in her eyes, Riley is viewed as the perfect girl, really. I think that's really how Maya sees her, as this perfect person who doesn't do anything wrong and things like that, and I think that's kind of how Maya views her, which I think is very interesting. I think we really did get into that in this episode. But then Sean starts to talk about him and Topanga, and how Riley sounds very much like Topanga and what she's doing, and that's kind of just who Riley is, that Riley very much sounds like Topanga in the way that she talks about, like, how she needs Maya to change immediately, now she needs her to do these things, and how Maya's still there. We remember when Topanga went through that identity crisis. We remember that, very, very early in Season 4 did Topanga go through that, when she, she was a hippie for like 2 seasons. She was kind of like in that hippie culture. She was, very much into weird, like, scientific things, and then in Season 4, that's really when she started to undergo that change, and that's when Topanga sort of evolved into the Topanga we know today, and I think they showed that very well with Maya. In fact, I've heard a theory that Maya is going to turn out exactly like Topanga, and honestly, I think after this episode, that could very much be true, because Sean starts to talk about how Topanga would always talk about that, and that's kind of the thing that she did. And then he even talks about how Riley's kind of like a mini Corey, and in many ways she is. I mean, Corey was always the one to help out Sean and felt like he needed to, not discipline Sean, that's not the word, I'm not going to say discipline's the word, but he was the one that felt like he needed to help out Sean. He felt like it was his duty to turn Sean around, to turn Sean into this better man, and, you know, not necessarily change Sean, but I don't really think he realized that he kind of did change Sean, and we'll get into that in a little bit, because then he talks about how, you know, Corey and Topanga, he felt he needs someone, so he had Angela. Angela was the Topanga. The difference is that Angela and Sean did not love each other the way Topanga and Corey did. If you remember, most of their arc was them breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. It was constantly on and off, and it was for different reasons, many of which didn't exactly make sense, but I think it's mainly because that Angela and Sean just didn't love each other in the way that Corey and Topanga do. In fact, there's a scene in Season 7 that I recall where Corey and Topanga are married, and they're living in this house, basically, and it's not the best house, like, their water doesn't work and things like that, and it's this really bad, it's not even a house, it's a dorm for married couples, basically, and, it's not working out very well for them, and Sean is with Angela, and she even asks, you know, do you want to be like Corey and Topanga? And he says no in that scene, but I kind of feel like, yeah, he did. He wanted Angela to be his Topanga, and I think we very much see that here, that he really wanted Angela in his life, and now that he knows that Angela's moved on, he's kind of in this weird point in his life where he doesn't really know what to do. I think he always thought that Angela was his girl, and now realizing that she wasn't, he doesn't really know what to do, and I think we really did get into that very well in this episode. So then we get to the point where Maya decides that she wants to change herself. She wants to change things around, and she basically says, I want to sell all my clothes, please, and I thought that was definitely very funny. We see that with Sean a little bit earlier, which a little bit later, which I'll get into, but then we see Lucas, and he's lamenting pretty much. He's lamenting, we can see he's made a decision, and he says to Topanga that he wants to wait. He's going to wait at the bay window, and I love it. Topanga's like, this isn't even your house. I thought that was really funny, because yes, Lucas, Maya, and Farkle, when they're in this house, they treat it like it's their own, and we've seen that, but we've seen Maya do that, but not necessarily Lucas, and I like that we saw that Lucas was kind of treating this like it was his own house, like the bay window is his spot as well, because in many ways, it is starting to not just become a place for Riley and Maya, it's starting to become a place for Lucas, for Farkle, for Zay, for everyone pretty much, and I love the way that Lucas used the bay window as his meeting spot, which I thought was very funny, because you're thinking, okay, he's gonna meet one of the girls there, which I'll get into that in a little bit, but basically, he goes there, and, Corey decides to go over, and Sean starts to realize that he's in a very similar spot, that he doesn't realize, you know, what he's becoming either. He looks at himself, and he even says to Maya, there are some days where he looks at himself in the mirror, and he doesn't know who he is, and Riley says the same thing, to pinpoint the exact moment when he started to not be like Corey, and he says, I want to sell all my clothes, please, again, and then Corey comes in the door, and we get probably the most Boy Meets World reminiscent scene of Corey and Sean mirroring Maya and Riley, but in very different ways. We see they're not at all like Maya and Riley, but they're very much like Maya and Riley. I think they showed that very well, because a lot of people say Maya and Riley are exactly Corey and Sean. That's a fair bet, definitely. It's a fair bet, but I also think it's kind of not true. It's definitely not true, and I think it's a very, amateur way of describing it, definitely. I'm not saying the people that say that are amateurs, I'm just saying that's a very average and amateur way of describing what Corey and Sean have that Maya and Riley don't, because definitely Corey and Sean have something that Maya and Riley don't, and I think the difference is that Corey and Sean, you know, Sean obviously is an adult, Maya is facing this now. They don't want, you know, Sean doesn't want Maya to end up like him, basically, but we kind of see that here, that Corey comes to his rescue, and he's not really there to rescue, because Sean says that you're the one that made me this way. He starts beating up Corey, and it's hilarious to watch, honestly. It was, like I said, very reminiscent of Boy Meets World. I just love seeing this, and a lot of people say that Corey has gotten too tough, and he's gotten too much like Feeney. We definitely see that here, that he's not Feeney, but I love the conversation where Sean says, I've become Feeney, because he's wearing, you know, khakis and a sweater, which is not what he usually wears. That was never Sean. Sean was always the rebel. Sean always, you know, he wore, like, cuff sleeves and things like that. He never, you know, he never dressed like that, really, and that's how Corey dressed, and Corey says that he's Feeney's father. I thought that was hilarious to watch. I really did love that, but I do like what Sean talked about here, that he really did talk about how he's turning into Feeney. These two get into a whole big fight, very funny to watch, and I thought that was definitely very interesting. We'll get into that more in a little bit. But then we get this really great scene with Katie and Topanga, which I really like, because a lot of people have said that Topanga, besides a few scenes, really hasn't had much to do this season. Honestly, yeah, I'd agree. I mean, definitely she's had a lot more to do in the show. This season, not so much. But I really think this scene really shows what Topanga's purpose really is. I mean, if you remember how close Topanga and Angela were, they're definitely, I think, trying to make Katie very much like Angela, but not in the same sense as Angela. Angela was Topanga's, best friend in high school. If you remember, those two were that's how Sean met Angela. They were very close and everything, and they developed a whole friendship, and even when Sean and Angela weren't together, Angela and Topanga remained best friends, and I don't really know if they kept in contact, though. They seem to be friends that have kind of drifted apart over the years, and Katie is kind of replacing Angela. But I love the scene between Topanga and Katie, because obviously everyone was wondering, why was Katie acting so off in the last episode? Why did she not care that Maya was leaving? Why did she not even care that Maya was lost? Why did she just not seem to care at all? Why was she taking it so, why was she just, not really taking it that seriously? And we finally addressed that here, and I like that honestly seems to be an intentional choice. It seems like that wasn't, a mistake in the writers department. It seemed like that was all their idea. The idea is that Katie as well doesn't really realize what she's becoming, because she's never, she's not focused on Maya right now. She's thinking about Sean, and Topanga says, you get this, look in your eye when you think about Sean, and basically we kind of realize that Katie might actually be in love with Sean, and she's never really been in love with someone before. She had Kermit, but Kermit didn't love her. Kermit really did not love her. He left her, and she really hasn't loved anyone since, but it really seems like now she's ready to move on. She's ready to say she's in love with him, and it's such a sweet scene just to see that she loves someone and says that somebody loves me. It's just such a sweet scene, because honestly, I feel really bad for Katie. If you remember in the beginning of the show, Katie was all on her own. She was pretending that she was an actress when really she was a waitress, and she had these aspiring dreams. And even Topanga says, look, you are a great actress, but it's time to stop pretending. You're in love with Sean. You need to admit that. And I really loved that. I thought that was really well done. One of my favorite parts of this episode was that conversation there, because it's very rare we get those scenes in this show. I mean, yeah, we get a lot of scenes between, we get a lot of scenes with the adults, but never something this in-depth. Usually it's Riley, Maya, Lucas, Farkle, Zay, and Smackle that are our main focus, and for once we actually had a nice change of scenery here with Topanga and Katie, and I really love that. That's one of the things that really made this episode so great. Like I said, all the pieces just really came together here, and everyone really had those great intellectual conversations and those great discussions that I think really brought up some great questions. So what I love about this, though, is that Corey and Sean do eventually calm down. They stop fighting, and Sean talks about, what's happened to him, and Corey talks about how the Sean he knows was rebellious. The Sean he knows ran away all the time. The Sean he knows did all this stuff to Feeney, and he references all the things he did to Feeney, like blowing up a mailbox. I mean, if you remember, there was that great recurring joke in Boy Meets World that constantly Sean would just keep blowing up mailboxes. There was even an episode, if you guys remember, where Sean just comes in and says, I blew up another mailbox as a joke, and it was hilarious, because, yeah, that's constantly what Sean did. He kept blowing up mailboxes, and he'd do all this stuff to Feeney, and he just isn't liked anymore. He's not rebellious in the way he used to be, much like Maya isn't rebellious in the way she used to be. Now, definitely very different. Maya, I don't think, would just go around blowing up mailboxes. That's not who Maya is, but that's who Sean is, and I think that's the difference between Sean and Maya. Sean was a rebel, while Maya is a go-getter. I think that's really the difference here, is that Maya does things, out of spontaneity, which Sean does too, but Sean's also rebellious. He jumps to things immediately, and he doesn't think about things, really, and that's just who he is. That's his character, and that's really, I think, what Corey's trying to say, that's who he needs to get back, that rebellious side, that spontaneity. And I absolutely loved when they did their classic, handshake that they did in the Season 2 episode where they were going off to high school. I absolutely loved that, thought that was awesome, and just seeing Riley and Maya react to that, I thought was awesome, and I think we've seen that before. I believe they did that in the Christmas episode. I don't know if they did, but I love that, thought that was awesome, really added to this, and again, it really just showed that even though these two aren't as close as they used to be, they're still going to be best friends throughout all their life. They're still going to be best friends. Corey's always going to be there for Sean, much like Riley always wants to be there for Maya, and the relation that those two have, I think, is what Riley and Maya want to have. In fact, Maya says, let's not end up this way, but I think deep down she really does want, Riley to be like Corey, and she wants to be the Sean to Riley's Corey. I think that's really how it is, and you very much see that. I mean, much like people said that, oh, Corey and Sean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of homoerotic stuff between those two. A lot of people say that Maya and Riley are a lesbian couple at times, and they're very much like that. Yes, that's very much how Corey and Sean were. I mean, if you remember, there was that episode where they talked like a gay couple, very much like Sean and, very much like Riley and Maya do, and I think they showed that very well here, and I really love that. But then we get to the big moments in this next scene, where Maya realizes, that she wants to change. She wants to find herself, and Riley knows exactly where to go. Where they go is probably the best place they could have gone, which is to their high school, back to the art class, which I don't know how they got there or how the doors were unlocked, but whatever. It doesn't really matter in this circumstance. Basically, they get there, and this is really Maya's chance to just vent. This is her chance to just say everything she's going through. Riley spoke in her piece. Finally, Maya is not just hiding it. She's going to admit what's going on, and, Riley says that she wants to do this in a civilized way, and she doesn't just want to be fighting like, Corey and Sean were. But Maya basically tells her everything, that Riley had someone to, say good morning to her or give her dinner or put her to bed at night, and Maya was always wondering if her dad was ever going to come home, or if her dad was ever going to stay, or even if her dad would be there in the morning and not leave. I think she said to the diner, which I'm assuming is the bar. From what we saw, I'm pretty sure that Kermit was very much a drinker, and he did a lot of, we definitely saw that when we were introduced to him. He definitely seems like a guy that drinks a lot and probably did some drugs too, and again, that's really heavy stuff, but the way the Girl Meets World I think, subtly talks about that stuff, I really enjoy, because honestly, I did get that vibe that he very much seems to have been a really hard drinker, and he probably came home many nights drunk, and that's one of the reasons why him and Katie he just left, pretty much. And again, that's very much like Sean, where his mother just took off. But, Maya always wishes she had that life, and that's why I think she started to become like Riley, because she felt that she wanted that, and she always wanted to be just like Riley. And in that moment, just talking about this, she finally gets her aggressive side back when she starts painting just a little line on Riley's face. Riley says, "There you are." She splashes the purple onto Maya, and they get into this whole paint fight, which I absolutely love, because it's finally them rekindling their friendship. Their friendship has been kind of broken right now, and now it's finally them getting it back. I loved it. And the art teacher walking back in, I really love this guy, honestly. I was kind of like, I don't know, this guy might not be as good as the other one, but I really like what we saw of him here. He talks about, I love where he's like, I love to paint alone, and I love to paint, when it's calm, and it's not calm. I thought that was definitely very funny. I don't even remember what his line was, but he was really funny there. And he talks to Maya about how she is this very gifted artist, and how he really feels that she can do great things. And he even tells Riley, the purple cat, that, keep painting millions of those, because that's who she is. And many people say that, when you just paint, you paint how you feel, you paint out of emotion. And what Maya did, yes, it very much was that was a purple cat like Riley, and that was what Riley painted. But it also was, many people think, Maya's interpretation of their friendship, and kind of how she was feeling at the time, and how there definitely was more subtlety in that drawing. You can definitely tell. That's kind of just how Maya is, where she paints all of her emotions, and that's what I think Maya's meant to do. She's meant to be an artist. That's who she's been, and she's getting back to that side. I absolutely love that, and I just thought that was awesome. I love the way that was done. Really awesome stuff there, and I really thought they did a great job of that. Absolutely loved what they did there. So I thought that really was awesome. So then we fight to Lucas, who actually has been waiting at the bay window for 5 hours, we find out, which I thought was really funny. I like that we saw that, and Zay comes in, and Farkle comes in, and this is Lucas's chance to talk to Farkle, because he's been able to talk to Zay, but Zay doesn't have the connection he does with Riley and Maya like Farkle does. Farkle's known them all his life, as we know. From bay window, he's known them since they were, like, toddlers, and he talks about how he'll always love Riley and Maya. Maybe not necessarily as, in a love way, but he loves them like, sisters, and he'll always love them in that way. Even though he's with Smackle right now, he'll always love them in that way, and that's something that Lucas needs to understand, is that he'll always have the protection over them, he'll always love them, and that's why Maya does, I think that's why Lucas really doesn't want to disappoint them. I think Lucas just really doesn't want to disappoint either of them, but I love the way the scene was done with Maya and Riley, where Zay talks about how great they are, and then they come in, and Zay's like, and that's what happens to them at night, because they're covered in paint and everything, and Maya tells Lucas that no matter what he chooses, he's choosing Riley, because the only reason that it seems that Maya liked Lucas is because Riley liked Lucas. And I think that's what Maya's realizing, that the reason that she loved Lucas is all the reasons because of Riley. I think something happened in Texas where she started to feel Riley has someone, I need someone. I think it's very much like what was going on with, I think it's very much what was going on with Sean, where Sean felt, Corey is a Topanga, I need a Topanga. I think that's very much what Maya was going through. And she even says that I don't want you to make a decision right now. I need to find who I am, why I like you, and then you can make your decision. And that's what I'm thinking the twist in Ski Lodge is going to be, is that she's going to end up cheating, there's going to be some sort of fling there. Someone's going to kiss, someone's going to make out, Maya's going to do something, Riley's going to do something, I don't really know. But there's definitely going to be a big twist in Ski Lodge, and I'm assuming that it's going to be Maya doing something spontaneously, either kissing Lucas or cheating on, I could honestly see some cheating going on. Maybe Lucas picks Riley and Maya cheats on, Lucas cheats on Maya, or Maya decides to kiss Lucas or something. I don't really know. Something like that is going to happen, though, and I think she's definitely not going to be able to make that decision on why she likes Lucas till Ski Lodge. I think that definitely is what's going to happen there, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And even though it might put a wrench in Riley and Maya's friendship, I think Riley will understand it. She's found why she loves Lucas, and I think that's really what's going to happen, is that eventually she'll find out then. Love the way that was done, and they decide to not make a decision. Again, we're going to wait it out, and I think it's honestly the right thing to do. There's actual reasons why it's happening, because Maya needs to find herself. Maya needs to realize, do I really like him? Why do I really like him? What is it about him that I like? What is it about him that I like that Riley doesn't? Because there's clearly something that Lucas and Maya have that Riley and Lucas just don't, and we don't know what it is yet. It's not the whole brother-sister thing. That's definitely not what it is. We don't know what it is yet, and I like that. I like that no one really knows, and a lot of people said that Maya is turning out like Topanga in the way that she's kind of discovering who she is, while also not completely changing herself, because that's kind of what Topanga did in that one episode where she had the identity crisis, but she did kind of stay in that same way. She was always an overachiever, she always got the great grades, and she always, she even, if I remember, was supposed to read at graduation, but it was Sean that ended up reading at graduation, and I think that's going to be the same thing with Maya, where she's always going to be the one that doesn't get as good grades, and she's going to be, less successful than Riley, but she's also going to be just as successful as Riley. I think she's going to do whatever she can to not turn out like Riley, and I really like the way we saw that. And the way this episode, I think there was just a great message here of, do we, people we hang out with all our life, are we jealous of them? Do we want to turn out like them? Not necessarily jealousy, I think, is the idea. I think it's more influenced, or, aspire to be. You see how successful someone is. And I think everyone really gets this way. Not just someone you hang out with, but you see someone, on a street, or even you see a celebrity. Why do we watch celebrities? Because we want to be like them. We aspire to be like those celebrities. They're successful, they're talented, they have tons of friends, everyone loves them, we want to be like them. I think that's really why we watch celebrities. Now, some, yes, we watch to make fun of, like the Kardashians and Justin Bieber, but, some that we do watch because we want to be like them, and I think it's very much what this episode is trying to say, and I really love that. But then we get into the huge ending, which I know you guys want me to talk about. Now, this was rumored. This was rumored for a while, that there was going to be something big at the end of this episode, and I was definitely kind of wondering if it was going to happen, because I know there's an episode that they said there was going to be a wedding, and I'm like, these girls are 13, and, well, not 13, they're like 14 and 15, and there's no way that they're going to get married at 14 and 15. That's just not going to happen. We had that fake wedding between Maya and Farkle in that one episode, but that was just, a silly thing that happened. But this is actually real, because basically we see, they go back to Katie, and Maya talks about how, she's kind of back. I like how Riley says, Topanga says Riley, and she says he's there. When Katie says Maya, Maya says kind of, because she's not fully back yet. The next episode is Girl Meets True Maya. That is when Maya's going to come back. But then Sean comes in with Corey, and this is the Sean Hunter that we all knew. This is the Sean Hunter that we remember. And and the second that Corey said we had to pick something up, I knew exactly what was going to happen here, which it's so well done. Sean talks about how, he's realized that he's lost himself. He's lost himself, and that, influences and things like that made him distance him, made him turn into something he's not, and he's someone that is spontaneous, and he finally tells her that he's in love with her. He wants to be with her for the rest of her life. He loves Maya like a daughter. He wants to be with her, and he pops the question right then and there, does she want to get married? And I like the way this was done. I thought we were going to leave on a cliffhanger. We don't. Katie does say yes. Sean and Katie are getting married. It's such a good ending. I love the way that was done. It's about time that finally this happens, because we have been hearing about Sean for a while, but again, I feel like that was an intentional choice, that we didn't hear how things went with Sean and Katie, because Sean doesn't know how things are going until Corey finally gave him that reality check and just said, look, just say how you feel. Don't have this awkward tension going on. There's no reason for this awkward tension. If you two are in love with each other, just admit it, and these two are in love with each other. They want to be together. Sean and Katie are going to get married. I can't wait to see the way this is turning out, and it's awesome that this is finally happening. It concludes an arc in Boy Meets World. Really, it does. It concludes an arc that's going on for forever of Sean trying to be like Corey. Finally, he's not being like Corey, and we're finally seeing that. Love the way that was done. Amazing stuff there, and a perfect way to end this just amazing, I think, masterpiece of an episode, because this really was incredible. So overall, guys, what an amazing episode this was. There was so much greatness in this episode between all the Boy Meets World nostalgia poured in this episode. Like I said, there are about a half a dozen references throughout this episode about Corey and Sean's childhood. There are about a half a dozen references about Corey, Sean, and Topanga, as kids and teenagers, them growing up in Riley and Maya's situation. I think we definitely did see that here. But, Lucas not making that decision, I like that they are giving him time. I like that Maya said, don't make your decision yet, because I don't know why I like you yet. There's no reason for him to choose between the two, because either way, right now, he's just choosing Riley. And Riley kind of saw it as, Lucas is hers, but I think Riley kind of thinks that right now, because Maya really doesn't love Lucas in the way she thought, and she needs to understand why she likes Lucas. And I love how she says, look, the sunshine, Skippy part of me is not really who I am. That's who Riley is, and that's not really who Maya is. And I like seeing that. I'm looking forward to seeing what Maya discovers, because I'm sure she's going to discover something, but again, I don't think we're going to get the answer till Ski Lodge. Unfortunately, I think it's not going to end well for either of them, but we'll have to see how that goes down. That's going to be interesting. Sean and Katie getting married, I think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see how this goes down. I hope that they do get married, and this isn't just, a fake wedding. I hope that some days two actually do get married. I'm happy that Sean finally confessed his love to her, and we'll have to see how things go. I love the way that went. That was really awesome to watch. And then just seeing this personal transformation of Maya, seeing her transform, back into her old self, and seeing Sean turn back into his old self. I don't think the message here is that we don't change as we grow up. I mean, people change people. Secret of life. That's like the biggest message of the show that we've had. But I think what Corey's really trying to say about people change people is that people make people recognize who they really are, and they make them recognize how you can go from maturity to losing yourself completely. Because I think at someone like Sean and Maya's situation, they kind of go through that, where they go from, trying to be mature to completely losing themselves and turning into something they're not. And that's pretty much what these two have been through. I think that's why these two are so close, too. I think it's not just because Sean, really, like he said, loves Maya like a daughter, but it's also because they're very much in the same kind of situation. They've both grown up in that similar situation, and I really love that. I don't really think there was anyone better for Maya to go to than Sean. I think we definitely saw that here. Absolutely love that. Really incredible stuff, guys. By far best episode of the season, like I said. Absolutely love this episode. This episode is 24 minutes long, and it's probably one of the longest episodes we've had of Girl Meets World so far, but I love that we got it. And like I said, guys, don't be worried that Girl Meets World's getting canceled. After episodes like this, there's absolutely no way they're going to cancel the show. I just can't possibly see them doing that. Let me know what you guys saw this episode, though. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Hopefully, have a great 4th of July, guys, again, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a classic movie, which will be for a 4th of July review. I'm planning on doing 2 reviews, one classic, one regular, and I will see you guys. They're both 4th of July movies, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.